I did
Yay!
too. That's great.
Oh. Perfect.
Okay, let's try it again.
We can do better.
Louder this time. No, just kidding. Hi, my name is Janna Loeffler, and I'm a director of engineering at the Walt Disney Company and your friendly moderator for today. We have a panel of experts here to answer your questions on leadership. So I have some questions that I'll get started, but if you're interested in submitting your own, please feel free to go to slido.com. And here is the participation code. I know I'm not as cool as Adam. I don't have a QR code, but at least I have the website and the participant code. So please ask away.
That number is 2011344. In case, like me, your eyes aren't like quite as good as they were last time.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Now operators are waiting.
Exactly. All right. I'm going to hand this off to my lovely panelists to introduce themselves.
Good afternoon. I'm Philip Daye. I am a QA team lead at eMarketer.
Hi, I'm Chris Loder. I am a senior QA manager at Privacy Analytics.
I'm Melissa Benua. You may know me from such exciting things as Vibe Coding by Surprise yesterday. And I am a VP of Engineering at Imparticle by Rocked.
Hello, I'm Maxine Thompson. I'm an IT manager with Progressive Insurance, your lovely insurance company. Yeah.
All right. We're going to kick this off with, well, we'll start with Chris, because why not?
Why not?
Which values are important to you as a leader?
In people who report to me or in me in general?
In you in general, in a leader.
In a leader?
Value?
Oh, values in a leader?
Yep.
Transparency is pretty huge. And knowing my leader's got my back. I don't know the right term for that, but
You feel supported.
that's the word.
Yeah.
Feeling supported from my leader, and transparency is huge for me, to let me know what's going on, and honesty and forthright, actually. I have a saying, I don't know what's broken. I can't fix what I don't know is broken. So I like it when someone tells me I'm broken.
My big one on that is I can't promote somebody if I don't know they want to be promoted.
That too, yeah.
Yeah, so that's a big one for me.
Yeah. Radical candor is what. Sorry.
No, this louder?
Oh,
These microphones only are for online. They're not for.
Oh, that's true.
oh yeah.
Don't
Sorry.
get distracted by the microphone.
We got totally distracted by the microphones.
Our apologies.
We didn't want to like blow your ears out by accident. I was going to add to Chris, so radical candor. I would call it radical candor. Is probably the most important trait. I don't know if it's a value, but trait in a leader that you can give and receive
Yes.
honest feedback from a place of caring.
Yes. Honest feedback is key. I like to give honest feedback.
And I think that leads into a really good next question, which Melissa, why don't you kick us off with, is how do you receive negative feedback?
How do I receive it? Like, do I throw like a temper tantrum?
Exactly.
Or how do I, okay.
Do you welcome it? Do you?
Always. So I actually had a discussion with another leader, with a friend of mine earlier today, where I said, I love to argue. And she said, well, I don't like arguing. Arguing has a lot of negative connotation. I said, no. Let's agree on a new definition of the word arguing, which is I like to collaboratively disassemble a problem and figure out what the solution is together. And that may sound like a give and a take, a push and a pull. It may sound like really digging in to the problem and asking hard questions and having a tough conversation and being vulnerable. So I like to receive feedback from that place, right? Of look, the feedback is because I have identified a problem or I've noticed a pattern, and I would like to help you solve it. So if we come at it collaboratively, right? It's not a I'm right and you're wrong. It's not a hey, you need to change this or you're broken or fix this. But I like to receive feedback in the nature of and in the spirit of let's get better together. Because giving you the feedback makes me better, and you receiving it and us together finding a plan makes us all better.
I call it passionate debates.
I'm not a big fan of negative feedback. I prefer constructive criticism. I'm all up for being told I'm wrong or I need to fix something. Help me do it. Help me understand it.
Yep.
But I don't think we should say it's negative. I think it's constructive feedback. I think those two words sound better.
Yep. I absolutely agree.
So we've abolished negative
Negative
feedback.
and we
Yeah.
have
Now
changed that
constructive
to
criticism.
constructive criticism.
I like it.
All right.
We just changed the world, people.
I'll kind of lean over there and say, this one's a good one for you, Philip, which is, what strategy do you have to help manual testers become automation engineers?
That's great, because that's often where I find myself when I go into a leadership situation. It's usually a whole department problem, right? You have to get buy-in from leadership. You have to get buy-in from the development teams as well. So part of it is being the ambassador and the champion of automation in general. But when it then becomes my reports and I have to get them ready for automation, it's about putting the tools in front of them, the resources that they need to train. A lot of times I'll point them to something like Test Automation U, which has all kinds of free courses on different automation tools. I'll encourage them to read. I'll encourage them to experiment. And I will tell them it's okay to do these things, give them the freedom to learn, but also then the other side of that is make myself available as a resource. Having had some few years of experience in automation, I'm certainly a good resource for them to come to and continue to ask questions and to look through, to evaluate where the problem is, help identify where something's not working. And that continues on beyond just the introduction of automation, but as we begin to actually automate, to help them to do code reviews for them, to point out where things could be made more efficient, or where they're, one of my pet peeves is people who use sleeps in their tests.
In my world, sleep is a 4-letter word.
Thank you. So what are the strategies you can use to avoid using sleeps in your code? So I'm their resource to help them to continue to grow beyond the basics.
Excellent. Maxine, what key metrics do you use to measure the performance of your team?
Feedback. Positive feedback. No, sorry.
Positive feedback, yes.
Metrics. We've got a number of things going on for my team. Lots of metrics come through surveys, one-on-ones, and collectively every quarter we do run a really good survey across the whole org. And it covers everything soft skill wise, technical training. Do you see your manager as your friend? Which always the scores are not always the best every year, but at least we get the metrics.
Yes.
And we can dig in and say, okay, what can we do better, to make you feel like you do have a friend at work?
Wonderful. Chris, how can I help my team feel more valuable and less threatened by no-code tools in this AI era?
Oh, you're asking the wrong guy about no code, low code.
I may have strategically chosen you.
I'm all about the code. Not that saying that there isn't a place for those tools. My team right now is all about the code. All our stuff is homemade and custom built. So there is the migration tidal wave, whatever you want to call it, of no code, low code coming in. I haven't had a lot of questions from my team on it. So I haven't been managed to kind of sidestep that a little bit. But when the time comes, I guess my answer is, let's wait and see how good it is. I don't ever see any of that putting anybody out of work. There's just different work for us to do.
Cool. And along that vein, Melissa, what strategy do you have or recommend to select tools and mechanisms for AI-powered technologies and the latest tool for test automation?
So the way I would select any tool is to start with the problem we're trying to solve, right? You don't buy a tool because you get cash burning a hole in your pocket. You buy a tool to solve a problem. So what problem are you trying to solve? And then look, what's available in the space, what does it cost? But my strong preference is to try a couple. See what works, see how it interacts with you. It's one thing to see something on paper or to see a canned demo. Like, those are fine, but it's nothing like the reality of, look, I'm going to take a week or two and we're really going to get elbows deep in this thing and see if it's really addressing our problem in a way that we need it to address, right? It's time sensitive, it's easy to work with, it's reliable. And so once you really get in there and figure out, what am I trying to solve? What do I want to do? Here's a couple things I've tried. Then it's pretty easy. Usually there's an obvious winner. But there's really no substitute for just trying stuff. Not that you spend all day, but spend a couple hours a month just picking a tool and learning, especially with all the AI tools that are coming and going and coming and going.
Can I add a caveat to that, though?
Mm-hmm.
My caveat to that is if you want to do a POC or try a new piece of new automation tool, please do not just click through the license agreement. Don't
You have
do
to go
it.
through purchasing and like your corporate stuff. Like you can't just download on your. Please don't download on your dev box. Use
Yeah.
use your like actual purchasing and security requirements. Make sure you're aligning with whatever your company says for you.
Right.
Especially if you need to, So one way we try out the AI tools is we try it out on a public repo, right? So source code is often an issue. Our real data is an issue. So you can be creative with where you try some of the stuff out, right? Oh, it's a public GitHub repository. Nobody really cares if it ends up, it's already been indexed. Who cares? It's safer to try. So if you set up, here's our prototyping tool strategy. It's approved by security. We know we can use this type of license. We know we're going to use this type of data that's siloed and safe. Then it can be pretty easy to rapidly then run things through the process.
Excellent. Philip, where do you see software testing discipline in 2 years with the way AI is advancing?
Well, I think in some ways, there's not that much of a change from the way we should be pursuing testing anyways. We may be removed a little bit from the test design. The tools may be assisting us with that, with even the automation and the execution. But we still have a big part to play in the creativity and the questioning of things. And hopefully this will finally give us the opportunity to move further upstream. One of the ways to produce quality in our systems is to prevent the defects from ever occurring in the first place. And one of the ways we can do that is to have the conversations early, ask questions early, to make sure what we're trying to build is really what we should be building and that we're going to build it the right way. So we can be more involved in preventative as opposed to detective.
Maxine, what do you think some of the top skills QA leaders should be ensuring their teams are equipped with? So what skills do you like to see on your team?
Great question you asked today, because that's one of my foremost drivers in the last 2 years. And I have a program that we just launched last year and running again this year. And we narrowed it down to 3 categories: communication, collaboration, and the leadership skills, negotiations, influencing. And it comes at all levels. It's not just, hey, you're a test lead or you're a BSA lead or a QA manager. I think it cuts across any role at any level. And those 3 areas were the areas that we found a huge, huge need in. So I would say those 3.
Excellent.
For us,
Yeah.
critical thinking.
Critical, yes.
I need people who are willing to get in there and question it.
Yep.
And debug and troubleshoot. That sort of thing is very, very important.
This question actually is specifically for you, Chris.
Of course it is.
It says, is Chris related to Kurt Loder from MTV News?
No.
No.
Okay, I knew we were all wondering about that, so
Well, yeah.
I had to ask.
Maybe somewhere, but no.
There is a great question in here on what advice would you give to somebody wanting to transition into leadership. So what I'd like everybody on the panel to do is give kind of their favorite piece of advice about transitioning into leadership, and just take a couple of seconds or so to explain your journey and what made you want to go into leadership. Kick us off, Philip.
Sure.
You sat next to me. This was your choice.
That's right. So let's see. Let's break this down a little bit. So I would tell someone who's interested in getting into leadership to first off define leadership versus management. Which is the path that they actually want, right? There is a difference between managing people, making sure people are taken care of, they have opportunities for growth, and the ability to lead a team, to drive them forward to goals. Now, I don't think a leader has to be a manager, but a manager better be a leader, right? So that would be the first thing. The next thing is, if they're actually interested in leadership, the piece of advice I would give them is come to me with a project you want to lead. And my job as their leader would be to begin to set them up with opportunities while they've got my support to go into leadership, to lead a project, to lead it and see it through to success. The best way to learn leadership is not through reading a book, but by actually doing it.
For me, I firmly believe that people like to follow leaders. Not everybody will follow a manager. And much like Philip, I like to give my people opportunities to show their leadership, to take over projects, take over more responsibility. Because you kind of have to prove you can do the job before you get the job. That's pretty common in our industry. It's very rare that someone gets the promotion before they've ever been able to do it. So I like to give them opportunities to show that.
So I always ask people who are saying, I want to be in leadership. I want to lead this thing. Why? Why do you want to get into leadership? Because there's good reasons and there's bad reasons, right? Bad reasons around things like, I want to be in charge. I like the power. I want to decide stuff. I'm going to get paid more money.
All the money.
Those are all really bad reasons. And I know that I ask because when people would ask me the same question when I wanted to get into leadership, and I said, because I like that we collectively can do more together by an order of magnitude than I could ever do by myself. And I like helping other people hit their maximum potential so that we as a group hit our maximum potential. So that was my why. So what I look for, are you interested in it because yourself and it's a power thing, or are you interested in it because you just really want to see it done well and you feel like you could help other people succeed? Because that's, for me, what leadership is, helping other people succeed.
Yeah, I totally agree with what Melissa said, and that's one of the questions in your career you're going to get asked by whoever you're talking to. If it's your manager, why do you want to be a leader? What is it about leading or leading people or leading a project that makes you motivated to get into that role? Because leaders sometimes are lonely. Right? You have to make decisions sometimes that are in the best interest of the whole and not just the individual. And sometimes those decisions are not always, looked on favorably. So for me, in my career, I think getting into leadership really was passion. I wanted to see things work. I wanted to help people. I wanted people to get to be their best. And people didn't know how to get there, right? So if you're in that position where you can help others be better, help them craft and carve out a path that gets them to where they want to be as leaders, that for me is so satisfying, seeing people improve, grow. Oh my God, when I see people that I've mentored or coached now be a manager, be a director, it is the best feeling, because you've heard terms of servant leadership. Just bandy that around. The true servant leader is one who seeks to make people get even further beyond where you're at. So for me, it's always the passion to help people get to where they want to be. If that's something that person shows, demonstrates, I tell all my people in my team, I see everyone as a leader. Everyone has leadership potential. It's just bring it out of you, right? In the right time and in the right manner.
That's beautiful. That's my favorite too.
I was like, that's yeah, okay. So I was gonna follow up with that, but I'm not sure I want to right now.
I'm so sorry. Perfect. Then we're done with the leadership.
You've learned everything that you need to know.
A big part of our job as leaders is to bring in the next set of leaders.
Yep, absolutely.
Right. I'll never forget. There's a Dilbert cartoon I saw. I can date myself here, probably 25 plus years ago, that said, "Don't be irreplaceable. If you can't be replaced, you can't be promoted."
Yes.
Right. Our job is to get those people to that next level.
Yeah, I actually had a manager way back early in my career. We were still riding saber-toothed tigers to work. But very early on, he had two of us that reported to him that he was constantly coaching and mentoring. And he told us, he said, I'm doing this so that you're ready to take my job, because I can't be promoted until there's someone ready to step in behind me. So Chris, yeah, that's our job as leaders, to prepare the next leaders.
Yep.
My first question that I always ask people who want to go into leadership, I'm like, do you really understand what that means? I'm
Valuable
like, I
question.
spend about 70% of my day as everyone's personal therapist. I spend about 20% of the rest of that writing reports and managing up and making pretty pie charts and PowerPoint presentations. And then maybe 10% is actually doing work. So you have to be prepared for that. Don't go into, that's why I think the why is such a good driving factor of that, is because, I want to make sure you understand what you're getting yourself into before you get into that. In that vein, Melissa, I think this is a great question for you.
Oh boy.
What are some recommendations for managing up?
Oh, I'm not good at this, y'all. I'm actually notoriously a bad manager up because I don't like to sell myself. And this is actually one of my weaknesses as a leader. I'm not very good at managing up. I feel weird selling myself. And I know this is going to be really hard for you guys to believe. You just watch me get on stage for an hour and talk about how great everything is. But I have a hard time selling myself, right? Here's all the amazing things I did. Look how great I am. I'm not selling my org, but selling myself. So the ways I've found to work, my fallback is to at least, let's look at the data, right? I'm not selling myself. I'm selling my team and our effectiveness. So let's go see what data we can get, and let's pull that together into a report. I like to put a lot of caveats, all data is manipulable. All data can lie. You can tell any lie you want with any set of data. So the way I manage up is I'm very forthright. Here's the data I have. Here's all the problems with my data, and here's all the reasons I'm wrong. And now here are all of my conclusions that I'm going to draw about why this is actually amazing. So I find by striking a balance between, at least that feels more authentic to me, right? Because I don't deal in certainties very often. A lot of my world is, we think it's like this and the probability is like this. And so by helping manage that uncertainty, by being really upfront about, here's what I have to do, here's the expectations I can set for you, here's all the ways that I could be wrong about it, but here's what I think is going to happen. And then getting alignment, because that's really important, making sure that the way I am speaking up is the way the person up wants to be spoken to, and that they are receiving the message that I wanted to give them. And that we are agreed on the takeaways we're going to take. Because just because I made a really cool graph or something doesn't mean that they had the same interpretation that I wanted them to have. So I have to control the message. I have to own the message. Listening happens not at the speaker's mouth, but at the receiver's ear. Mm-hmm. So I have to check and recheck and recheck. Are we on the same page? Do we take the same things away? Does your interpretation match my interpretation? And if not, I'm not managing up well. We need to iterate.
Melissa, you just sold yourself really well on how you manage up. I'm just saying. No, I'm not good at this, man. Sounds to me like you're very good at this.
I should say, it doesn't come naturally to me. So I had to learn a system to put in place because I don't have any of the instincts for it.
Right. Philip, what are some ways to keep a testing team motivated?
Torture doesn't work.
I know.
I think part of it is you come in with your own enthusiasm, right? I haven't, after almost 3 decades in this industry, I haven't lost my enthusiasm for it yet. I'm always finding new things, new tools to play with, new approaches to things. So I think it starts with me as a leader, setting the tone of being curious, of continuously learning, continuously being driven to improve what I can do. And then put that before them and encourage them to do the same. One of the things I look for when I hire is people who are curious and people who are learners, and not just waiting for me to deliver the learning, but are going to go out and get it themselves. So it makes it easier for me as a leader then to say, here, let's try this. Let's experiment with this. If I had the budget, I would have my whole team here this week, right? To give them the opportunity to continue to meet and expand the universe of understanding they have. So it's all about starting with yourself, having that growth mindset, and then sharing that out to them and encouraging the same for them.
This is a great question too. Do you believe a management degree helps you get into leadership and helps you be a better leader?
Like
Like-
an MBA?
Like an MBA or management of engineering?
Does
degree?
anybody here have an MBA?
No.
Yes.
The answer is no.
Do you need it? Maybe not. I suspect there are some things you learn there that may help.
You may also be able to learn those things through apprenticeship style, mentorship, learning under another leader. Certainly you can get it. I'm sure there's a value in an MBA because lots of people seem to get them, Janna.
And I
But
never
I
begrudge education.
I actually got halfway through a master's in systems engineering leadership before I said, I can get this on the job. I'm not going to pay for this.
I can pay
But
for it.
but if you're not getting it on the job, you can pay for it, right? Like it's a nice option to have.
So I worked for Janna.
My next question was literally going to be name a business leader who inspires you, and I'm like, Philip.
That's so sweet.
This is a entirely unpaid, unsolicited endorsement. No, I'll finish what I was going to say first, and then come back to that. So I work for Janna. So obviously, I have a great deal of respect for her, and she was a fantastic leader. So there, MBA good, okay. However, we'll give the counterbalance on that. I worked for a company many, many moons ago that was acquired by another company. And they kept us as a subsidiary, and they installed the head of that company's son to be our leader. His main qualification was that he had a Harvard MBA. He so ran the company into the ground that within a year, they solicited the original CEO to come back and take over the company again so that we could move forward. So an MBA for the right person can be a benefit. An MBA for someone who is not a leader, there's no amount of MBA that's going to help them. They're still going to have the same problem. I do have leaders that have inspired me. I've been fortunate to have some good examples. Janna being one. Janna is someone who, Melissa was talking about.
Totally planted this panel.
Okay. Melissa talks about not being good at selling herself, and she did a good job
Of selling yourself.
of selling herself. Janna is very similar, okay, in that she was never taking credit for what the team did. She always celebrated the wins on the team as a team win. Now, the manager that followed her was very different.
Yeah.
And he took credit for all the successes, right? Look what I accomplished through my people, but look what I accomplished.
I think we've all worked for that guy.
Yeah. But if there was a failure,
Yeah.
it was you, right? So you got to own your own failures. He got to own your successes. So he was not an inspiration. Some of you have seen Tariq King speaking here. He's a leader that I look to also as an inspiration. And the way that he encouraged his people, the way he trains people, and the way he tries to grow people up. There are several speakers here that are speakers because of his encouragement. Another leader, and I'll get a little personal and emotional about this one. A great example I had growing up was my own father. Okay. My dad's no one special. You guys, if you Google me, his name typically comes up first, but he was not someone big in the world. However, across my lifetime, he was the president of our church council. He was the president of the credit union for the city of Hialeah. He was the president of his condo board. I never once saw him politic for one of those positions. It was because he was a natural leader and people had that kind of respect for him that he just naturally rose up to the top like that. And that's how I want to be. I want to be a quiet leader. Okay. I'm loud when I talk, but I want to be a quiet leader. I don't want everyone looking at me and going, what a great leader, right? I want to just lead so that we can all succeed.
So I have a great story around this, and I think it's a great opportunity for a lot of leaders to learn. And I recently had an employee who did it, as I say, they did a dumb thing by, it was accident. There was no malicious intent. It was a mistake. And my VP was like, okay, we don't want anybody else to make that mistake. So I need you to contact HR and write up that employee and let's make an example. So everybody else knows how serious this is. And I said, I can absolutely do that. But the name I'm going to have them write up is me. I'm going to talk to that employee. I'm going to make sure that mistake doesn't happen again. I will make sure that the team understands that this is a mistake and this was very serious. But the fact of the matter is I knew what that employee was going to do. I mean, not all the nits and details of it. I just came back to the Walt Disney Company 3 months ago. I can't know everything all the time. But as a leader, I should have paid more attention. And I said, so if there's a problem, then we need to discuss it, because I'm just as much at fault as that employee is. And I think that's huge in gaining your team's trust. Now, I will tell you, my manager knows that I did that. That employee does not know that I did that. It's not for them to know. It's for them
They
to
know now.
Yeah. Well, they do now. Yeah, if they're watching, they do now. But so that's the other thing with being a leader is being willing to, take those hits, take those blames, without standing up and being like, look, I did this for you. Aren't I special? So along those lines, I was going to ask Maxine, can you give an example of a decision that you made that was a mistake and how you handled that as a leader? Because managers never make mistakes.
So many come to mind.
I know.
Which one? Thinking I can solve everything by myself. Such a bad leadership, lack of, foresight. So a couple of years ago, as an IT director, software, DevOps team, always on the go, always, we're launching, we're pushing this product, to production and getting all these calls. And then at the same time, my team built an application that would do a lot of troubleshooting to help the network ops team. And every time we push something, I'm on that call 24/7. Oh, blooming neck. There was a decision to, do we push this or do we hold back? And I'm like, push it. After a lack of 16 to 20 hours of sleep. Ooh. Such a stupid. Ooh. I kicked myself. Well, I'm still kicking myself.
We couldn't tell.
I was like, come on, and so when I did talk to my VP, it was like, okay, let's decide what would you delegate. Take a step back. You don't have to always be the one making that decision, right? It's just not necessary to be Superman or Superwoman. So yeah, that was one of those. Don't ever do that again. Ever.
I have something for engineers. So how many of you as engineering leaders have ever fallen into the trap of, if I just explain this technical change we need to make more and better, I'm going to overcome whatever the complaint or the issue or whatever the objection is. Who's done that? Yeah, I have at least 2 major initiatives that I wanted to get done that I thought I'm not explaining it well enough. Let me continue to explain how much better Kubernetes is going to make this thing, which was completely neglecting the actual issue, which was not having there's an emotional problem, right? No amount of logic is going to explain my way out of an emotional, like a lack of fundamental trust or a confusion or an emotional objection. So just assuming, mistake I've made several times, if we just all agree on the best logical solution, we will just move forward, and we can't make any bad choices that way. And it's a mistake to neglect the emotional aspect that underlies decision making and alignment as well.
Chris,
Yes.
what strategies or what tactics do you use to handle resistance to change within your team?
I'm the boss. Do what I tell you. No, I would never do that. Because I've been managed that way. As everybody knows, it doesn't work, right? If you tell people that they have to do something this way, it's very rarely ever works out. So I like to encourage people to, I just lost my entire train of thought.
Encourage them to do torture.
No.
Encourage them to do shots.
Oh, well, are we going for a drink?
Well, we got time. What?
5 o'clock
15
somewhere.
more minutes?
Yeah.
Can you restate the question, please?
Yep.
I've totally drawn a mind blank here.
How do you? Now this question. That's a great question because I just lost it because it moved.
See how I did
I
that? See how I
know,
got
look
out of
at
that
that.
question?
To adopt new things.
Oh,
learn
to adopt new things, to learn new things.
Resistance to
Resistance
change.
to change.
Resistance to change. Thank you. Because I'm quite resistant to change. No, I'm not. It's the only way we're going to grow, and we all have to grow. Again, it comes back to those people who want to be leaders. You have to change. You have to learn new things. We all have to learn new skills. I hate to tell this to everybody, but the industry you're in today is not the one I started in 30 years ago. There's probably not a whole lot in this room who knows what it was like to install Microsoft Office on Windows 3.1 with a stack of floppy disks this big, right? So we're in such a different world. So we all have to learn. It's not so much we shouldn't or can't, we have to. And I try and get that across to people in that you got to take the time to learn it. It's going to hurt, but we'll all be better off for it. And I try and show them what it's going to be like on the other side when we get there.
I'm going to let anybody who wants to take this one take this one. How would you go about upskilling an SDET that has great technical skills but lacks in testing methodology?
Send them to Star West in the
Star
fall.
I'm trying to craft an answer that doesn't get me in trouble.
Oh, get yourself in trouble. That's always fun.
No, but
I do it all the time.
I'm just trying to understand how your STET got there without that skill set.
Yeah.
So testing is a skill that can be taught. So I might start them on something like the black box software testing course that was written by Kem Kaner. All the materials are available online.
I took that one live from him in college.
Nice. So all the materials available online, and it teaches a lot of the fundamentals of testing, right? So break them out of the automation. Maybe get them on a project where they have to do a little more exploratory testing instead of automation.
It's a great idea.
Right? So I might take that approach.
That is a great idea. All right, wonderful panelists. Some organizations are moving towards end-to-end responsibility of being the product engineers, meaning build and test. How do you feel about this versus a dedicated QA team?
Oh, you and I have argued this for years.
So context.
Pick that question, huh?
I was part of Microsoft's very first wave of combined engineering. I was an SDET that was converted to SDEs at Bing in 2010, 2009 when we did this. So I'm a fan of it. I liked it. I found that it made the devs better testers and the testers better developers. And that we all move together faster without the source of conflict that inevitably comes from handing responsibility of something off to somebody else. You don't have to communication barrier. You don't lose that velocity, and then that, even the best devs and testers, when you're throwing something over the wall, have misaligned incentives.
But we're all agile. We don't throw over the wall anymore.
You throw over the next cubicle. Dump it on someone's desk and run
I
away.
was waiting for some sparks to fly here, fist
Oh, sorry.
between the two. Oh my goodness.
No, I like the separation of church and state. Well, for me, QA is a different mindset from development. It really is. Now, I'm not saying developers can't test, but when a feature has to go out in a hurry, what's the first thing that gets cut? Testing.
Yes.
Only if the incentives aren't right.
Okay.
But I call it wearing different hats.
Different hats
Right?
is a great way to put it.
Because if you put a dev in a situation where they appreciate and learn to appreciate what testers have to go through, I think they become better,
Yes.
right? And vice versa. The testers might be a little hesitant. Well, I don't, I'm not a coder. I don't know how to write code. Well, at least if you understand, right, what it is that you're testing, and at least have the concepts and terminologies, it makes you a better tester. So it's kind of like a cross between the two. Wear that hat, you might appreciate, what they have to go through. And when you're doing your job, all of those skills would help make the project a lot better.
But let's talk a little bit about incentives, right? Because
Yes.
it was off for a line, but like there's ways to make it be successful, and there's ways to make this be completely horrifically unsuccessful, right?
Agreed.
And it's to do with incentives and responsibility. And if you were in Ronit's keynote this morning, you saw about pain, right? The currency of pain. If developers feel the currency of pain, that is shipping a bunch of bugs to production, they are incentivized to fix it. If they do not feel that pain, then yeah, their first thing they're gonna do is cut testing. Who cares? Test is gonna be thrown and you're gonna end up with a bunch of garbage. So you have to align them in a way that can be successful.
Agreed.
I'm going to add to that because it's not only incentivizing them, it's empowering them.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times they'll feel pain and they'll know how to make changes, and you can incentivize them by that pain. But until you empower them, then nothing's going to change. They're not actually going to be motivated to do anything about it, because why would they?
Who cares, right?
Who cares? Exactly. So I think as leaders, that's the big thing that you can take away is how do you empower your team? And that doesn't mean, woohoo, you are all free to do whatever you want. No,
No.
no. But, you do give them, the freedom to make some choices. You have the guardrails up, but at the same point in time, you help them grow. And when they make mistakes, because inevitably we're all humans and we make mistakes, you're there to support them and say, okay, what have we learned and how do we go forward? Now, unless they're
Yes.
doing something really stupid and then you're like, yeah. So purposefully going in and setting a virus on the server was probably not the best move. You're
Shouldn't have
fired.
mind those bitcoins.
Yeah. I have a funny story about that too.
Production
sometime.
server.
So I would say it also depends on execution, right? How do you go about doing it? A former employer told all of their developers that they had to start testing and testers had to start developing, and then less than a month later fired all the testers. You can tell from Melissa's laugh that this is
Ouch.
probably not a recipe for success. And talk about bringing the pain. That company felt a lot of pain immediately. The better, in my opinion, would be to begin a transition period where you start to blend the roles, but that the tester remains the quality expert,
Yes.
the quality
That's
SME,
a great way to put it.
a quality coach. And so they still have some of that ownership of the quality until it can begin to be spread throughout the team. Deliver the training, just like we talked about how do you train an SDET on how to test, right? We can go through the same kind of process, maybe a little more slowly, to bring the developers up on that skill, because testing, again, is a skill. And by the same token, then you've got time for the tester to deepen their technical skills so that they can transition into more of a development role.
Yeah, testing is a skill, like managing a database is a skill,
Absolutely.
like
Yep.
managing networking is a skill, DevOps is a skill. They're skills.
Well, and this
I-
kind of
I've said
leads
that from day
into
one.
the next question of leadership is asking for no QA or dev separation in the team. Everyone should be doing everything. Does that really work? And if not, how to convince a senior management? So I'm going to answer this one real quick, and then if anybody has anything else to go in there, because it's one of my favorite analogies. We all know that the right thing to do is pick up trash and recycle, right? That's our jobs as humans to keep the earth clean. How many times have we walked by down a sidewalk and said, "Oh, I don't have time to pick up that trash," or somebody else will get it. That's not my job.
Yuck.
That's usually what happens when you say, everybody is responsible for testing and quality. Very soon, nobody's responsible for testing and quality because everybody assumes that the other person's going to do it. And so this is where I help people understand that there's a difference between responsibility and accountability. Everybody can be responsible for testing and quality, but you need to have that subject matter expert who is accountable for the testing and the quality of that testing.
I don't think I can say it any better than that.
But yes, we have seen it done successfully
Yes.
and also not successfully.
Yes.
But it can be done. It's not made up garbage. Not every 100% of the
garbage,
time.
it's
It can be
recycling.
done.
Go ahead.
I just want to put it out there. Everybody's team is different.
Yep.
Everybody's team is made up of different people. Everybody works on different products. You all have different technology stacks. So no matter what is said, find what works for you and your team and do that.
So here's another one that's near and dear to my heart as a leader. Can somebody or many of you talk about a time where a business has made a decision that you don't agree with, but you have to get your team to rally behind?
But don't be fired for talking about it.
Yeah.
Isn't that common?
Yeah. How do you go about doing that? Okay, fine. Am I going to answer my own question?
You have to, so depends on a little bit on your company culture, right? So some companies have a culture of disagree but commit, right? Comes out of Amazon. Say, look, I don't agree with this, but I agree the decision is made, and I will comply with the decision, and I will move forward. Some companies don't have that, and they want to debate it endlessly to death, and until everybody is debated and convinced, they won't move forward. So it depends a little bit on your company's culture. But when I'm working in a disagree but commit state, or otherwise I've been told this is so, figure it out. It's my job as a leader and as a person of responsibility in the company, I either need to come to terms with it and find something I can agree with, or I can't be a leader at that company, right? Like I can't, if they're truly making decisions that I cannot get behind in a way that I can convince my team or otherwise see the justification of, I can't lead there. Like I just can't, right? And for me personally, I can't put myself in that position of having to lie or to be dishonest with my team. I can't lead from a place of trust and a place of commitment if I'm not able to get myself there in my heart.
Would you tell your team that you disagree with the decision, but it's the one we're going forward with?
Yeah, in a disagree but commit state. Yeah, because oftentimes if I disagree, they may disagree as well. So if I can get myself to seeing, yep, I would have taken a different road. I see why we're doing this road. I would have picked a different one, but I don't have a strong objection, right? I don't have I'm not going to pull the ripcord on it. I'll, talk through, this is the decision that was made. Here's why I disagree, but here's the reasons it was made. And I agree that for their context, this decision seems best. So we're going to go this direction. Right. And so that's a part of buying trust for me, is being honest about where I agree and disagree, but I trust the people ultimately who made the decision, and I can trust that from their point of view, it's the right one.
Yeah.
So that's, if I can't get there, I can't, right?
Yeah, I think this happens quite often. It doesn't even only happen in business, right? You could be your church, right? You could be your church leader, whatever. And you have to trust that your leaders are making the right decision. It might not be something you agree with because you don't have all the facts, and usually that's the case. You don't know what's behind the decision.
What drove it?
What drove that decision? And if I'm meeting with my team and I'm having to share and communicate something that is really a tough message, I have to convince myself, first of all, what are the pros and cons? I'm not going to go in front of a team and say, I don't agree with it. But on the side, people will come up to you and say, what do you think? Right? What's your take on this? Especially if it impacts their livelihood. And without being disingenuous, because you do represent the leadership, you do represent a company, you can tell them, personally, this is how I think, but that's not, the message, and we have to trust that this is going to be in the best interest. I know I'm sounding like I'm in the middle ground here, but stay with me here. We don't always have all the facts. And I have to come from that place of, I don't have all the facts, but what I do know is this, and this is how it will impact you at a personal level, professionally, or otherwise. But at the same time, to your point, Melissa, if it comes down to an ethical issue, no. No, absolutely not.
And I asked that follow-up because if you'll notice, that looped us right back to the qualities of a good leader, right? Trust and transparency.
And integrity.
Integrity. Yes.
Part of it.
Definitely. And people are going to give me the evil stink eye on this. And that's, I mean, it's hard because you'll have us standing up here saying you have to be an empathetic leader. You have to have that authenticity. You have to have that just emotional intelligence. But at the same point in time, you also have to be the person that says, this is business, not personal.
Yes.
Yes. And
So-
those are the hard conversations.
Yeah.
Those are the hard conversations to have. And it takes a toll on management. Is not for everybody. Because let me tell you, that takes a toll on you because you get to know your team. You get to know them on a personal level. And then you have these decisions that are made that that you may not agree with, or you may have to fire somebody, you may have to lay off somebody, and you don't agree with that. But you
Worst
have to
part of
remember,
the job.
is it's business and not personal. Chris,
Yes, ma'am.
as a manager, where would you put more emphasis on? People leadership or technical mentorship? And what's a sane ratio between the two?
Like for me personally,
Sure.
I think what makes me a good manager is my technical background, because I know what my people are doing. I know what they've worked on. I came up through the trenches just like they are now. I'll never forget, I worked for one manager one time. It was not my first automation gig, but my first for him. And he's like, how long is that going to take? I looked at it, rough estimate, 2 weeks. 2 weeks, I can put 20 people on and have it tested. And
Sorry.
but he had never automated. I was on another team a couple of years later, different manager, but one who had come up through the ranks. And he's like, how long is that going to take? A couple of weeks, maybe 3. Sounds about right. Let me know when it's done. Right. So to me, you've got to have the people skills because, like you said, there are days you're more Dr. Phil than you are, anything else. I find that to give you a number, I don't know, like some days it's 50-50 and other days it's 99-1. It's depending on which way the wind is blowing, which decisions have come down from higher up that no one likes or everybody does like. Yeah.
I will say that I'm seeing a trend lately. This is less than 6 months, maybe 12, where the expectation is shifting towards more technical guidance than less. It used to be, especially at the heyday of COVID, when there were a lot of remote teams, that we were hiring for really good, pure people managers. And now I'm seeing that shift back the other direction, and still asking people to manage a lot of people, but with much more technical guidance than previously we were expecting.
I see that trend as well.
And I will say, like I said, I left the Walt Disney Company, came back. So I've only been with Walt Disney Company for these past 3 months. And one of the driving factors when I interviewed for this director position was asking my leadership, what's the budget for learning and development? What are your expectations around learning and development? Because for me, it's important for me to keep up on my technical skills. That's something I'm passionate about. So I want to make sure that I am working for a leader that supports that.
Yeah, I would say that we asked earlier about failures as leaders. And probably the point at which I failed is when I got that balance wrong. And I was too much of the technical leader and did not give enough emphasis on the growth of my people.
Yeah.
So you've got to, I don't know that there's a magic formula.
There isn't.
Right?
Like I said, it changes with the wind.
Changes with the wind. But you got to find that balance. You got to make sure that you are taking care of the people while you're driving the technical initiatives.
It's a great way to put it.
Yeah. So we have about 5 minutes left. So I'm going to ask one last question for each of our panelists, and you cannot use the same answer as the panelists before you. And Philip, I'm going to start with you. So
Well, that's not fair. Actually, let's be honest. You've always started on this end. I think you should start.
Okay, fine. Sorry.
Sorry.
Oh, nice one. Good one, Chris. All right, Maxine. What's your favorite thing about being a leader?
The people.
I can't say the people.
You can say more if you want. No, Melissa. We got 5 minutes.
I like seeing the output of my teams grow and change over time as they all get better together and learn and grow together to solve more and more interesting problems.
I like to see my people succeed. Their success, I mean, and I know it's an old adage, your success is my success, but it really is true. So I love to see my people succeed.
Thanks,
Phil.
Chris.
Sorry, I'm here for you, Phil.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to say like the coffee or something. I don't
Yeah.
know.
That was my next choice.
Can't say that one
Pretty
either
much.
now.
Only the person before you.
That's right.
It's the people. That's a test.
Look at that key QA mind over there.
I didn't plant her either, I promise.
No, I'll just take a little of each of the ones before me, right? It is the people. It is seeing the successes. It is seeing things through to completion.
I'm going to take a spin on that, and I'm going to say the value I provide to the business, the value that my team provides to the business, the value that each individual team member provides not only to themselves, but to the business. If you can't tell, leadership is a lot about how do we give value. And so that's one of my big things is watching and helping people discover what that value is and where their unique talent fits into the business needs.
That's a very MBA answer,
I
Jan.
know, doesn't it? You know, and I actually like the idea of Maxine's going first because that meant I had to go last.
Way to go, Janna.
I know, right? Well, we're going to go ahead and wrap things up here. Thank you so much for being a great audience. Thank you so much for all of your great questions. Panelists, thank you so much for your time and imparting your leadership wisdom. I think we're all going to be around for the rest of the day, so feel free to ask us.